Good morning. It's Wednesday, October the 2nd, November the 2nd. Oh my God, we're in a whole new month. October's like gone. That means winter's coming. Winter is coming. Anyway, I'm back. My husband and Ember the Bear and I all made it back from the UP yesterday afternoon. Excuse me, I'm still sleepy. I still haven't caught up. They're in a different time zone and still, so, while I didn't get thrown off horribly, I did get thrown off a little bit. But we made it back yesterday afternoon. In fact, we made it back early enough in the afternoon that we were able to vote. So, get out and vote and all that jazz. So I was going to tell you a little bit about what we did on our trip, and then I'll just do my usual after that. So this weekend was Halloween, as most of you guys know, and for those of us who are pagan, that's known as Samhain, Samhain. It looks like Samhain. It's not Samhain, it's Samhain. There's some variations on that pronunciation depending upon who and where you are. And for us, it is a holiday that represents remembrance of the ancestors, which I know I've talked about on here before. And it represents the thinning of the veil, which is a time when you can get into closer contact with the spirit world. And by spirit world, I don't just mean calling up your dead grandparents. I mean like making deeper connection with spirit, like God, deity. And it's a time of moving into introspection because you're coming into the dark of the season. I believe it's the time of Diwali as well, which is the festival of lights in India, I believe, but I could be completely wrong on that. So, many areas of the world right now are focusing on the fact that either it's coming to be dark or we want to introduce more light because it is dark. But it's the dark time of the year. We've now started the dark time. Woo, the dark time. Woo. So as such, when I went up to the UP, one of the things that I was doing was I was helping to facilitate a ritual. I'll get to that in a minute. So we got up there on Thursday night. My friend Dia and I hosted a Minecraft party for our little group of friends that have all kind of immigrated over from another server, and we're now all on a different server. So we hosted a little Halloween party. It was a lot of fun because everybody had costumes and we had snacks and music and running around, and we did some treats. I made a maze and everybody could go through the maze, and every room of the maze had little treats in it. So, and I made a little Halloween world for us to all go play in. So it was kind of fun. We're going to do something similar to that for Christmas. I'm talking with a different player, Sizzo, and he and I are going to create, we have the structure built. We're going to create the entertainment now. So that was Thursday night. And then Friday night, Dia, as the leader of her group, United by Light, Dia and I set up a charity situation, which she also presented to her group as a challenge. And the challenge was for making blankets for the local Nicu there in Marquette, Michigan. So what we did Friday night was we held an event where people could come and have access to materials and sewing machines and yarn and things like that, so that we could whip together some blankets. And we had enough to put together 13 small baby blankets, and two of us showed. So of the two of us, we managed to get 6 of those blankets done. Dia did the lion's share of the work on Saturday while I worked with somebody else and taught Reiki. But Friday night, we spent the night, the two of us, ironing and cutting and piecing, and we had all the tops put together by the end of Friday night for all 13 of the quilts. So she's got a couple of quilts left with her. I've got a few quilts left with me, and we're just going to work on them privately and donate them to our... she'll probably donate hers to the NICU, and I'll probably donate mine to Project Linus, because that's what I do. They don't have a Linus chapter by her that she's aware of, so she was going with the NICU. But part of what I wanted to talk about with that, had we had people show up, is I wanted to talk about the need for clothing and blankets for preemies and for babies who are born that are not going to survive. And so that leads me into today's charity, which is a charity out of Ohio called Touching Little Lives. And I've actually been a big fan of Touching Little Lives for a very long time, because what Touching Little Lives does, and I'm looking at their website, so if my eyes are moving around, and it's because I'm reading a website. What Touching Little Lives does is they give information about preemies, and they do it in a lot of different ways. So they have recipes, patterns on here that you can use for different sized preemies, for everything from hats to clothing to blankets, including burial pouches and burial gowns and memorial handkerchiefs and such for the parents to keep later. It also has a size chart, and if you've never looked at a size chart for preemies, you should. I made a little sample, and it's downstairs, or I would show you. I made a little sample for a 22-week preemie. That's 22 out of 40 weeks premature, which can live, but it's dicey. So a 22-week preemie weighs about a pound. That's like, you know, when you buy butter at Christmas time to make your cookies, and you buy that box that has 4 sticks in it, that's a pound. That's your baby right there. They're about 12 and a half to 13 inches long. Their head is about 8.5 inches in circumference, and their abdomen is about 7.5 inches. That's little bitty, tiny. That baby is about that big and has a head that's about that big and an abdomen that's about like that. It's a teeny little baby. So when parents have those babies are whisked away, and they're intubated, and they're IV'd, and they're covered in sensors, and usually the only article of clothing they can wear is a diaper, maybe a hat. And they're put in incubators so that they can keep warm, because their bodies are not developed enough to maintain their body heat. And preemie babies are born for lots of different reasons. You know, they're not just born because mom did something wrong, or you know, there's genetic issues, there's accidents, there's, you know, who knows, everything. There's health issues. There's all kinds of reasons why a baby is born preemie. Regardless of the reasons why, it's difficult. Being a parent of a baby that's in NICU is hard to start with, because you don't have the access to that baby you would have if they were born a normal, healthy baby. You know, you don't get to just pick the baby up all the time and hold them, and they cry and they poop and they do everything they're supposed to do. NICU babies are difficult to start with. Then you add in premature, and there's a whole new set of complications. They need special lighting, they need special warmth, they need special nutrients, they need all kinds of special help. And it's very intimidating for a lot of parents to see this baby covered completely in wires and sensors and such. And then when they're even tinier little preemies, there's not always the reward of knowing that you're going to get to take your baby home. There is many times the sad finality that the only reward you will get is calling the shots on when your baby gets to pass. So making products for your NICUs that are NICU approved are very important. You're helping to keep a baby's survival. You're helping to promote that survival. But what I really think of when I send things to NICUs is I think of the parents more than I do the baby. Medical institutions can find ways to keep babies, you know, healthy and safe and warm and comfortable. They can't always do what needs to be done to make the parents feel a little bit comforted. Sometimes when you are in a situation like that, receiving a blanket from a complete stranger who, even though they didn't know you, loved you enough to make sure there was something there for you, sometimes that's a huge help, to know that there's more love out there than sadness. So if you are inclined, if you are at all capable, find a way to create or to purchase to donate items that are appropriate for your local NICUs or for Project Linus. I know I've talked about Project Linus before. That's a whole other thing. But if you don't have a NICU near you, that's a route to go to. Contact your local NICU. That's I think that's Neonatal Intensive Care Unit or Natal Intensive Care Unit. I can never remember which one. But contact your NICU and see if you can't help. Back to Touching Little Lives. So like I said, they have patterns. They have a sizing chart if you want to make burial gowns and such. And they, of course, have their financial information and everything on here. They are a legitimate 501c3. So you might want to check them out. Their website is touchinglittlelives.org. And I'll put their link down below, as usual. Okay, my accounting. So I've and I was going to talk about the ritual too. Switch gears. And so then Saturday I taught a Reiki class all day long, and Sunday then we did ritual. So we started. I went to church services with Dia. My husband and I, Dan and I, went to church services with Dia for Halloween services at the UU, and it was a really fascinating service. We talked about the red shoes. It was the story of the red shoes, and how sometimes we let go of things in our lives because we need to, and sometimes we hang on too tightly to things because it's the only comfort we have. So as part of that particular talk and service, our friend Dia, who is a tribal belly dancer, was asked to stand up and perform. So she did in full gear, which I believe is the first time anybody in that church besides Dan and I have ever seen her both in full gear and dancing. So it was a very intense service. Well, then later in the afternoon, she and I facilitated for her group of people, her United by Light group, the descent of Inanna. And to keep it very brief, the idea of the descent of Inanna is the idea of Inanna walking through the 7 gates to get into the underworld to visit with her sister. And there's a variation on why she went, what she did when she got there. But the constant is there were 7 gates that she had to pass through, and at each gate she had to give up one aspect of self, usually in an article of clothing or in accessories. So that by the time she passed through that 7th gate, she's completely stripped bare and humiliated before her sister. So we didn't do it because of the humiliation. We did it because we realize in life that we have all these trappings that we put in front of us, and it makes our ability to connect to spirit that much more difficult because we have this and we have that and we have this other. And so the idea of this ritual was to take all of those exterior trappings and move them out of the way so that we could stand before Goddess completely bare and completely open and receptive. And so that's what we did, and it was a very intense ritual. It went really well, but it was very intense. So there's that. Okay. So accounting, I haven't done accounting since 2 weeks ago. So my accounting for the last 2 weeks puts me up at 167 hours on my 200-hour goal. So I should be fine. You know, like I said, I think last time I have 20 hours coming in December. And of course, it's that time of day. Please ignore the kitty cat peep show. So anyway, Touching Little Lives, 167 hours. We're back. We're back. So get back on schedule now, and I'll see you guys every week again. And hopefully that'll hold until the end of the year. So have a good week. Everybody, stay warm or get out and see the beautiful fall weather, whichever direction you're going. Down where we are in Wisconsin, it actually was almost 70 degrees yesterday. Up in the UP where we've been for the last several days, it's been cold and rainy and windy, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It's so beautiful up there, and then we couldn't ever go outside because it was like, ew. So anyway, have a good one. I hope you had a great Halloween, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye.